Good evening, everybody. Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomenon within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Today is Thursday, October 19th, 2023, and I am your host, Ryan Stacey. I'm not just any host, I'm a licensed private investigator in Ontario. I use my investigative skills to dive headfirst into the thrilling realms of UFOs, paranormal activities, and consciousness phenomenon as the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. We're so stoked to have you here, and we sincerely thank you for tuning in. And a special shout out to our YouTube channel members. You're the VIPs here. You'll get front row access to your burning questions, exclusive behind the scenes footage, hilarious bloopers, and a gold ticket to members only programs. So just hit the gleaming blue button that says join. And while you're at it, don't forget to ring the bell to stay updated on the latest content from the fantastic members of the Experiencer Support Association. So let's get this party started. Our guest for season 5, episode 12 is Isabeau Maxwell. Isabeau's introduction into spirituality and intuition was an interesting one. In 2005, at the age of 32, she went from a total skeptic to a psychic medium in one shocking, life-changing moment. Her grandmother appeared in Isabeau's living room just moments after she died. This experience shook her from her scientific corporate mind way of life into a world of spiritual possibilities. Sounds similar to what I went through. She trained to hone her own strong intuition and now teaches others how to easily do the same for themselves. So Isabeau can be found on her website, the Sage Method. I couldn't read it. So it's thesagemethod.com. All right. And also on social media. So Isabeau, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
All right. So our first question is going to be an icebreaker question, and it's brought to us by our support group, Experiencers Anonymous. So. Right on. All right. So the question is, would you rather be reincarnated as a cat or a dog?
I feel like that's a question of, do I want to be aloof or swallowed up in love? I think a cat, because I feel very strongly that cats are more in tune with actually everything that I find interesting.
Yeah, that's if you want to do a lot of work. I find cats do a lot of healing. So like healing is good, but then like it's like we're doing the same thing. A dog lays around, just gets fed and has fun once in a while. I don't know.
Yeah. A cat's also very disconnected.
Yeah.
Where a dog gets to just have fun, play, and be connected in that sort of love space. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I resonate more with cats too, on the note that, they don't give a fuck. They do what they want when they want.
See, I think I resonate with, I have dogs and I'm a dog person.
Yeah.
I think because I'm more like a cat.
Mm-hmm.
I think there can only be one cat in the house, and I think I'm already it. So
I have a dog and 5 cats.
There you go.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. All right. So the next question, as always, is why are you the way that you are? And what I mean by that is go back as far as you can and walk me through your life. And I will jot some notes down, make some questions, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Why am I the way that I am? I'm glad I can finally get to a point that I don't have to like wonder anymore about that. And I'm finally at a place in my life where I can say, nope, this is it. This is where I've landed. I'm happy to land here. There's really not much to tell from birth to 32, other than if you think in the typical, chase the dream, what do people think of you, drive the right car, have the right career driven kind of thing. That was my entire life. And I was raised to perform. There was no, I wasn't a trophy kid. You wouldn't see me like, going out for the Olympics or anything, but whatever I was doing, I had to do like the best of this, the best of that, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was just sort of keeping up with the Joneses. And I was skeptic. I went to church, little girl from Minnesota, which is, by the way, one of the favorite states of Canada. I just want to like pitch that out there. I come from the number one state that would get adopted into Canada from what I hear, which makes sense. Minnesota is a great place. And I grew up as Methodist. I did all the classes I was supposed to do as a kid and a teenager. Came home and I just said, hey, I can't get into any of this, Mom. And she was like, okay. And that was it. So no religion, no paranormal. It wasn't driven down my throat. I wasn't trying to prove anything wrong, but I was subtly told that psychics, mediums, spiritual stuff, it's all fake, all of it. If you can't see it, it's not real. And I glommed onto that. I grabbed onto it. I literally have a degree in mathematics from college. Like 1 + 1 had to equal 2. So that's the summary of 32 years. And I was in New Hampshire. My grandmother was in Minnesota. So a couple thousand miles away, like 1,000 or so miles away when she passed. And now my grandmother was everything, right? She was all of it. And I couldn't afford to be there. And, but I was on the phone with hospice with my aunt who was in the room with my grandmother. I was on the phone. I walked through the process of being there and being present when she passed. And I hung up the phone, came out into the living room, and my family said, we're going to run to the store. We're going to get you, chocolate and wine. And I was like, yes, because I'm about to fall apart. And I was alone. It was middle of the day. I'm going to say around 2 PM. I don't recall, but middle of the day. And I was standing up in my living room. It was like 3 feet from the front wall. I'll never forget it. And she showed up in front of me, like not off to the side, not in my peripheral, about 10 feet in front of me. She was about 70% solid. And still to the, yeah. And I think that was the part that was the hardest for me, was it wasn't that I thought maybe I had possibly it happened. And when it happened. And there was no getting around it. I still to this day have not seen her with that type of solidity. It's, maybe on one hand, I can count how many times I've seen a spirit that solid. And she showed up. She was standing sideways. I remember her outfit to a T. She turned, she looked at me, she winked, she smiled, and she disappeared. And I panicked, absolutely panicked. And it wasn't long, maybe a couple of minutes, that I had turned around and convinced myself that it was a hallucination. It's grief. This is what happens. These are those people that, this happens to. Went to bed, didn't say a word, went to bed. Woke up the next morning and my husband at the time said, I had the most realistic dream of your grandmother last night. And this is what she was wearing. And it floored me because he described exactly what she was wearing when she had stood in front of me the day before, but I hadn't said anything for fear of being crazy. Like I had that drilled into my head that those people are crazy. I'm like, okay. So I toyed with it for a couple of days, and I'll be honest, at the time, it was pure grief. I absolutely did not want her to be gone. I didn't. And I was like, well, I could set up a scientific experiment around this. I was like, I could test this. I could, be the one, right, that proves that this is something. And it was out of grief. It was completely out of grief. And it took me a couple of months. There was this very kind man who, it was the only person I knew in any sort of realm that wasn't corporate finance or, skeptic. And he was a Tai Chi instructor. And I went to his location, and I remember saying to him, "You're the strangest person I know. Can you help me?" And now I look back on that, and we've joked, and I've said, I'm so sorry for how I approached you back then. But he said, yeah. And he helped me understand what energy was. He helped me understand possibilities of other realms. And he also explained how to start with using your body as an intuitive system, a yes and a no. And that's where I went. I started with pendulum work, where, you swing the pendulum. If it swings one way, it's a yes. If you swing the other way, it's a no. And I spent a couple of months, about 2 months, communicating with her. I would get a sensation that was this overwhelming, like goosebumps mixed with falling off a roller coaster feeling. And I came to know that was her way of going, hey, I'm here, or I thought it was, but that wasn't proof enough for me. And so I would stop and I would do yes and no questions, which took a long time because, you have to kind of take something from something big down to something small through yes and no to get a message. And I recall the day that the proof hit so hard. And I remember that morning saying out loud to her, wherever you are, I'm really starting to think you're not real. I'm starting to think this is me. I'm making this up. I have 2 small children at this point that I need to raise. And so I need to talk to someone to get my head back on straight and process through this grief, because you're not coming with proof. And, that sounds harsh, but that's who I was back then. And it was later that day. I was alone. I was driving my car, and I got that rush. It went through me again. And I went, okay, all right, fine. And I pulled over. It was like a good 15-minute, 20-minute yes and no, 20 questions type thing. I got the message down to, it was about my mother. She was going to contact me for financial assistance, but that I wasn't going to be the one to help her. A friend would. And I said, okay, this message is specific enough that if it comes true, I'll listen. A couple hours later, I'm still running errands, and my mom called, and she said, hey, listen, I've got this financial situation, and I need you to go to, and this was so long ago, Ryan, we still had to go to banks to get money out. And she goes, I need you to go to your bank and take out cash, drive it to my bank, because of course we had 2 different banks. Drive it to my bank and deposit it because it needs to be cash. I need to turn some cash over today. And I said, okay, no problem, Mom. I'll do this. Now I went to my bank and I got the cash from my bank to her bank on that drive. All I could think about was debunking this entire thing. Like, she's an accountant, right? She works in the money world. This is not, I'm always the one that helps her. This is part of it. I got to her bank, pulled in the parking lot, didn't even get out of the car, and she called back and said, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. My friend Lisa wired the money. We're all set. And I hung up the phone and I thought, okay, exactly what has happened. And yeah, this situation's happened to me maybe 3 times over the last 3 years. So whatever was supposed to happen just happened. It happened within a couple of hours. And there's never been a time that I wasn't the one that helped her. Mm-hmm. It was always me that helped. And so I said to my grandmother, I said, okay, I'm in. Here we go. I'm in. And I thought it was just her. And I thought I had this great direct phone line to her. And I got really comfortable with it. It was really wonderful. Fast forward a couple more months, I'm in a grocery store, and I'm in an aisle of a grocery store. There's 3 people in the aisle. I'm in the aisle. And then I turn and look, and then there's like 9. And most of them are transparent. And I literally, to anybody that was in that grocery store back in 2005, 2006, I think it was actually. I ran. I literally physically ran out of that grocery store, jumped into my car. And by this time, I was starting to faintly be able to see my grandmother because I had finally relaxed into this. And she was in the passenger seat of my car. And she said, well, what the hell did you think was going to happen? And those were like literally her words. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And so from there, I just learned how to cope with the skeptic's reality that when you lock your door, it's not going to necessarily keep everything out. That's a transition that a skeptic goes through that a lot of people don't appreciate and they don't understand, or they don't take into consideration when they think that you should try to turn a skeptic, which I'm not a fan of. And I had to process through all that. It took a while. And after that, I kind of ran into, you could say, or just happened to connect with what somebody would consider in my world, my first spirit guide, my teaching guide. And it took me a while to connect with him as well. I had to kind of commit to it and relax into that. And then I started to open up a conversation with him. I got all these journals around it. I worked with him for 2 years. He helped me understand linear time, our three bodies, how we exist here, interdimensional travel. Like he helped me understand a ridiculous amount of information that I didn't have. And I think that brought me some comfort in navigating intuition, what's seen and what's not seen, how it's possible that more can be out there, lots of those types of concepts. And from there, I became a professional intuitive and then eventually started teaching other people how to tap into their intuition. And then met this guy, Ryan, and we decided to chat for an afternoon.
I like him already. You don't even know anything.
Right? He's a great guy.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So there's a lot to unpack there. So
yeah,
I resonated a lot with your story, with your experience, I should say, not a story because it's real. I myself was born with Catholic kind of indoctrination, if you will. There was, did Sunday school, Bible, all that other stuff. At 15, there was a time where I wanted to be a priest. Okay, I was pretty well that serious.
You were in.
I was in. And then I started reading the book. I spent all this time learning about it and understanding the passages that were read out. But then when I started from the beginning, reading the stuff that they didn't share, I had a lot of questions, such as, they made God in our image, in our likeness. Well, how is that possible? Because there's only one God, but who are these other people that he's referring to, right? And then you get into the Anunnaki and all that other stuff. That's further ahead. But then I was so I can resonate with that whole, this ain't working for me. I don't know why. And I've been lost for many years too. I was always paranormal rooted, always connected with that, but never really understanding more of that. Then I got introduced to, in following a path for policing and the army and whatnot. I ended up doing a militant kind of type career, and eventually into investigations. But I was skeptic. I'm still full blown nuts and bolts skeptic. And then I got through my investigations led me to MUFON. So I started investigating UFOs, and I was always drilled with this nuts and bolts stuff. And then every time these beings or these extraterrestrials or paranormal came in consciousness, it hurt. It rattled my brain because I couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't understand it, and I dismissed it. And that happened. And then I eventually got so high up in MUFON that I discovered their dirty laundry, and I pulled the plug on all that, and people hate me for that. But that's my past, but it's part of my thing. But at least that was me doing my job. But then along the lines, I have this experience where I see this vision, this geometric shape, which is on the Tesla symbol, which is on the website and whatnot, not knowing where this information came from, how that experience was, and it was pain, like this seeing something in front of me that wasn't actually there, but I could tell that it was like in my mind, but it's in this reality, like it wasn't a person, it was just this symbol. And later on, I started that's how I created the Experiential Support Association through I guess reflecting on it, which I now call meditating on it, which is a huge growth in my spiritual world. So this symbol taught me consciousness, taught me dimensions, taught me in a way to understand it. It's almost as if my future self or some other future thing had given me this puzzle to solve, because I'm good at puzzles, to give me information that only I would know, to connect things that I already knew. And then I was there. I can't go back. Right. So I can relate to that. I'm still skeptical, but I'm also a believer. And so the other thing that I resonate too as well with the your grandmother, and my question that I'll have is, do you know if your grandmother had any history in experiencing the same? Is it genetic? Is it hereditary?
I do know. And I want to throw out too, when I was listening to what you were saying, I find that the people who are introduced to higher sources, as us humans would like to say, that have a lot of knowledge, I find that the similarity that people have, like yourself and myself and other people that I've met that have gotten a lot of understanding, the similarity amongst all of them is that they hold a healthy amount of skepticism. They are problem solvers, and they want to figure out the puzzle. However, here's the commonality that I've found over the years. They also they all have the ability to continually stay open, understanding that there will never be a point that they wrap it up, that there will never be a point where they put a period at the end of the sentence and say, this is it. Mm-hmm. And it's usually those people that are invited into understanding the higher, these higher kind of concepts and linear structures and things like this, because they don't land. But anyway, as far as my grandmother goes, I did find that I sheepishly talked to my cousin at the funeral. I was like, this is going to sound so strange. This is going to sound so weird. And when I did this, mind you, now I was a grown adult. I was in my early 30s, right? But she said, well, yeah, there's no more, of course. And I was like, what do you mean, of course? She goes, yes, we've dealt with ghosts and spirits and stuff in the family all these years. And I'm like, no, we haven't. And she was like, hun, your mom made it real clear that part of our world wasn't to be included in yours. And so I was sheltered and shielded from that discussion. It was made very clear by my mother to the rest of the family, she's not to be, included in this and such. So I later find out that, like, my grandmother had a painted portrait of her mother. They would bring the portrait out. Her mother would spend the day in the home. And I'm like, you literally brought a painting out, and then you all understood it was okay that at the time I remember saying that a dead person was walking around the house. Like, you guys had, so there was a lot going on in my family that there was a big line between us that I was kept from it. I had one experience as a kid. Turns out it was that great grandmother. And I remember I must have been, I'm going to guess, around 9, 10. And I was in the front living room with my grandmother and my cousin. My mom wasn't there. And I remember going upstairs to get something. And there was a woman sitting on there. We had a twin bed right in the main hallway of the upstairs area, because there's lots of grandkids. And there was a woman sitting there putting on like stockings. And I remember going downstairs and saying to my grandmother, there's a woman upstairs. She's putting clothes on. And my grandma just said, yeah, that's my mom. And then everyone shifted back to what we were doing before. Like, everyone just sort of changed the subject before. And it took me a while to remember that and say, wait a minute, to my cousin. I'm like, was that And she's like, yep. So I guess my family was very open to it. What I've experienced over the years now, because I've worked with so many people in honing their intuition, it is clearly environment. It's clearly, it's not just, and then when it comes to the spiritual realms, and especially living people in spirit form, it's clearly environment. It's clearly a matter of understanding what the possibilities are. The equivalent for intuition and being able to see spirits, communicate with spirits, for me is the taste buds. I tell people in our world, it's like everyone was raised to understand that we couldn't taste anything. And then you're going to have people going, well, wait a minute, I do. And they're the quote strange ones and the weird ones. And the reality is that the taste buds, just like the sixth sense, is completely natural. Completely natural. But if you're raised to believe it's not real, then you kind of hold that belief.
Yeah, and there's so a lot of things have changed in the last, I don't know, like almost 10 years in terms of what's real and what's not real, and or what has been omitted, and then there's obviously people believe it was intentional. Maybe it was intentional. Maybe it wasn't intentional. More things are being found, and we're learning more pieces of the puzzle, or we're just, more of us are waking up. More of us are getting in tuned to whatever this is. And I call this the ultra spectrum, this place where we're getting this information. I don't identify as a psychic. I don't identify as a medium or anything like that, but I am acknowledging that I have the ability to tap into this place if I want to. I'm just not sure where I'm going, and I don't really have a reason to do it. So that's where my skepticism comes in. Like, I could do it. This is cool. This seems normal. Everybody can do it. I'm like these people, but I'm not going to go around and read tea leaves, That's not me. So, but I'm understanding consciousness now. And I call it psychogenic activity of the mind. And what I've learned through my paranormal and UFO investigations, when I focus on the experiencers and couple that with my investigation experience and trying to get tangible evidence to build a case for court. Sorry for me, I said that backwards. How does one prove credibility to this, right? Correlation doesn't mean causation, but there is a lot of people that have this ability to go to this place, pull information, and then spit it out into this 3 dimension. So there is evidence of something going on. And then I started to connect the idea that maybe the reason people can't take photographs of these crafts or these beings is because they think it's in the 3-dimensional world, but it's not. So you were able to determine 70%, transparent, I guess, right? 30%. You were able to determine some sort of holographic design, if you will, to distinguish that you were seeing something in another dimension. So you knew that. But there are some people that see it, I believe, at 100% and can't tell the difference.
Yes.
And we also have evidence, for the UFO guys that are listening, Project Bluebeam is, a thing. It's happening. Holographic, and they're going to use holographic technology to perhaps stage a fake alien invasion soon. That's coming. So, there's the human using that technology or using that concept to manipulate us in this 3 dimension, which also reinforces the possibility that we can do this. And when we grow up, we learn that it's taboo. We shouldn't do it. It's like a sexual orientation choice. It's like a race choice. Things like this, we were slowly taught that these are bad. But if you look at the way we're heading and all the things that were oppressed that are now being free, go back even further to antiquity, ancient Egypt, even before that, it's the way it was.
Yes, exactly.
The powered people back in the day were dark skinned and they were female and they were magical. Yeah. So we're coming full circle in a new world. But how do we prove that? Because they're the ones that are in control, right? So what is your thought on that? I just kind of went into you just inspired me to kind of just share that.
Well, I'm going to bounce off the inspiration then, because you've inspired me to say a few things as well. The one key piece that I try to drive home with people who are trying to tap into their intuition speaks to exactly what you were talking about the three-dimensional world.
Yeah.
What we are looking for, and when somebody grasps this concept, it opens doors for them. What we are looking for is not in the material solid world. If you go down to the smallest of levels, it explains the largest of largest levels. If you look at particles in the smallest possible level that you can, there's way more space in between the particles than there are particles. But yet we come down here, and these particles, these molecules, however you want to say it, come together to form solid objects. And then squirrel, that's the whole human condition, is constantly landing on solid objects. If anyone has done a masterful job at putting us into a location and fully keeping us distracted through what would be a human lifetime on linear time, it's the source that created this earth and this agreed upon reality, because we are consistently focusing on the solid. The easiest example for people to think about with this is seeing something out of the corner of your eye. Everyone I have ever met has seen something out of the corner of their eye. They've turned to look at it, and then it's gone. And we think in these human terms of poof, it disappeared. It didn't disappear. What happened is when you turned to look at it, your eyes landed on the molecules, on the solid, on the particles, and you could no longer see, because what was happening in your peripheral was happening in a defocused state. It was happening in between the particles. So we are literally built, the earth itself, from the understandings that I've not always had, but that I've had through all this training, is that the solid is built within the non-solid. The non-solid is source. I work with people all over the globe, so there's a lot of different traditions. And so I tend to talk in more generic terms about this. So the earth is built within the universe. We're not here and they're there. They're not over in some other place and we're over here. That's a very human concept. We're on linear time, and these particles are literally floating together in such a way, and they never even touch each other. And in between all of that is the structure that holds us together, which is source in itself. So when we're able to learn how to let go of the human need to see something solid, that's when you start to see what's really going on.
Yeah.
And it can be really eye-opening. And so yes, she came through 70% solid. It's the best way I can humanly put those words together for people. And yes, people do see, Bigfoot aliens, in solid form. But is that always solid? Have they always come into fruition? Are they actually wearing and utilizing particles from this earth-based existence, or are they interdimensionally traveling? So that's something that people need to consider. But the second we understand that if you're searching for it in the material world, you won't see it. Yeah. You won't see it. That helps people tremendously to open up and tap into their intuition.
Oh, we're in a rabbit hole. So you're really, which is good. We're beyond the tinfoil hat. So you really touched on your math, your math degree, and what you were saying there, and it made me think. I've always said, math never lies. Math always tells the truth. But the problem is, we don't know if we're using the right equation, because you can do different equations and come to a different answer, and both are right. But is it the right answer for what you're measuring? And a lot of people, don't know how to measure properly, but they think they're right. As an example, 1 plus 1 equals 2. But there is also in consciousness, 1 plus 1 equals 3. And how does that work? Do you know how that works mathematically?
Mathematically, I would categorize is what I would do to approach this, because 1 plus 1 also equals 1. So I would categorize it into, if you're trying to figure out what 1 plus 1 is, what time structure are you on? Because the time structure is going to determine. 1 plus 1 equals 2 only works with linear time. So because it's 1 is always built on 1 is always built on 1 is always built on 1, you know? But it depends on the time structure. Are you in a time structure? Are you in a different dimension that has a different time structure that's looped? If it's looped, then 1 plus 1 always equals 1. It's got to go back to 1. So, you know, I would more so categorize mathematics into what you're applying it to first before you can really dive into what the answer would even be.
Yeah. So like 1 plus 0 could be 0 or it could be 10. There's another example. And then there's also, see, 0 is interesting to me. 0 appears to be nothing, but yet you have 1 times 0, and that is supposed to be nothing.
Yeah.
But should it not be 1? Because 1 still exists, and how does 0 have a power to negate 1?
Well, 1 times 0 is really, in essence, 0 is swallowing the 1. I mean, it's if you have a space of null and you put something into it, then what you're saying is that that space is going to absorb it. Right.
So what I'm getting to is that connection to consciousness, that connection to the way that we reality is. It comes down to the numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, you know, sacred geometry, you know, all that stuff. And you mentioned time is linear, and the Earth is in its own, you know, bubble. Is that, as you would say? What did you say?
Yeah, it's in its own bubble. It's the way that I've come to understand it is, and I talk really specifically around the human experience of being on the other side and coming down here. I do not believe in the locational kind of dogma. It's and the way that I'm going to explain it can sound a little aloof.
Yeah.
But but I have to explain what I've come to understand. The higher self is like a ball of light on the other side. And you take a little chunk of that light out and you throw it down into a body. Body has a life. And then it lets go of the physical body. It returns back to the other side and returns back to the higher self. Now, there's a whole series of higher selves, an infinite number of them. They're all connected. Consider like a multidimensional web that goes in every direction. Those that are closest to you on the web are like your soulmates. So those that are farther away, you might meet in this life, like I'm meeting you, but you know, we're not necessarily having a life together. And then there are people that are here that are really far away on your spider web. But the whole concept is that the higher self is not on linear time. And this is the piece that a lot of people miss out on. And they keep at this kind of base level spirituality that they can sell out there is this, you know, we're here to learn. We're not here to learn. We're not here to learn. That would be that the other side, those on the other side don't know anything. But the fact is they're not on linear time. We are. So if you look at yourself from a higher self perspective, if I'm my higher self, I'm shooting a life down to earth and bringing it back all in an instant, because the higher self doesn't function on linear time. We do. So when we come down here into this life-based experience, we think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but outside of this source, there's, you know, higher beings functioning in higher linear structures, not even linear structures, but time structures. So for people say, well, then why do we come down here? We come down here to have experiences for the exact same reason. If you had unlimited vacation time and unlimited money, you would travel all over the world, right? It's that kind of a concept. We come down here for experiences. Yes, we understand what it is to grow something and harvest something. We understand the concepts of it on the other side, but to put a piece of yourself down here into a physical body to be able to plant a seed, tend the soil, and then harvest the food and then cook the food, that's a whole different level of understanding. And so linear time in many ways is one giant experience.
Mm-hmm. Horizontal or vertical for linear?
That's a great question. I would say vertical.
Okay.
I would say vertical. I would say vertical with fabulous spindles.
Yep.
If we go even further than that, people say, well, free will. We talk about free will, things like this.
Yeah.
What people are struggle with is the understanding and the concept that one lifetime has unlimited lifetimes within that one lifetime. So every major decision that you make is going to splinter off into another pattern, another consciousness, another trajectory, you could say. By the time you're done having one linear lifetime, some of which your trajectories have already ended, some of which are going to continue on, you've simply navigated and had this conscious awareness on this one trajectory of time. So by the time you're done, you've lived, you've done both choices in every moment. So it's really a very, for the higher self, it's a very full experience. It's a very complete experience. For us, we're just, Scooby-Doo hanging out on a Wednesday. You know what I mean? So it's there's pros and cons to all of that. I could go on. That is definitely a rabbit hole, but
yeah, no, I'm taking you down one. I'm kind of forcing a thought here, which is interesting because I love math. I don't have a degree in math, but I've always excelled in math. Math has always been math and physics and everything and I use that obviously when you like to figure out UFOs, just simple trigonometry and all that other stuff. So I am like totally into the math. And so if I were, we'll chew on this one and then we'll go to our break. But if I were to ask you where outer space is, what direction would you point?
I would have to ask from what perspective, right? So from the perspective of a viewing human, or from the perspective of not a viewing human?
So someone where you are right now, majority of the human on this plane, where's outer space?
The age of 31, I would say out there. Currently today, this is how I would answer it. In reference to my physical being, it's out there. If I'm referencing, if I'm mirroring it off my physical being, it's out there. If I'm not mirroring it off my physical being, if I'm connecting to it through source, it's at a pinpoint. It's all completely all within a pinpoint of a pinpoint. It's all within one spot, one location.
All right. I've always thought the outer space doesn't necessarily have to be up. It could also be out. Right? Meaning this planet is quite bigger than we are told. Or there's parts of it that are where the interdimensions reside. Yes. All right. So we're going to leave it. We're going to pause right here. But don't worry, we'll be back after a quick word from our professional partners. And if you're tuning in for the audio replay, hop on over to youtube.com/Experiencers Support Association to catch all the video action, including our after chat. And today I'm just going to run through my Facebook chat and Facebook and talk about what I've posted so far. And just it might be a short one, but stick around for that. Unless you got some questions, put them in the comments and we'll be back. All right.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
Business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Have you ever had a mysterious encounter with the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, or any other paracryptid phenomenon? Head over to the experiencersupport.org. Click the purple button in the top right corner and submit your experience. The more reports we get, the more we will understand these phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. All right, let's get back to the show. So we spent a good deal on one question. Are you the way that you are? That was, and we covered the what. And I was just thinking, to make it simple, let's talk about the how. Mm-hmm. How does this happen? How does this intuition and all this stuff, how does it happen? And then save some space, or if you want to mix it in, we'll talk about the why. But let's save some space for the how right now. So how does this happen?
How does intuition work?
Yeah, how, we established what you are, but how are you what you are? How is this coming to be?
So we'll say it this way, there's a lot of sparkle around intuitives, around mediums and psychics and things like this. We're going to take all of the ones that are not for the highest good, kind of playing the game scammers. We're going to put them over there and just forget about them and not even acknowledge them. So for the ones that are legit, that are out there, there are some universities and such that are doing testing, which I think is phenomenal. I went through testing myself. When it comes to those that are able to really open up and access higher levels of it, they approach it differently than what pop culture would invite you to think in terms of. Pop culture has invited this concept that it's a gift, that it's special, that it's unique, that some people have it, that some people don't. Everyone can play piano, but then there's Beethoven. We're all Beethoven. We've just been all told that we can't play piano. That's it. So for people that are able to actually access it, it's a matter of uncovering what's already within instead of approaching it as something that if I do it this way, or if I do it like this person does, or maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be one of those that have a gift. If people can let all that go and they can get into their understanding that the sixth sense, like you said, so long ago, right? We were all functioning with all six of our senses. And things were organic and there were seers and it was understood. And today everything's been shut down. Everything's been categorized. There's hierarchy has come into our realm in such a fierce way that it has pulled from people the concept of what's available to them, which is intuition. It is ridiculously natural. And we just haven't heard that, and we're not hearing that. It's not a normalcy in our society. So the best thing people can do is to declutter: emotional, environmental, physical, declutter. There's a reason why when we're not stressed, when we're relaxed, when we're in a meditative state, there's a reason why we experience more in those states, is because we're not in a massively distracted mode. And that's the biggest key, I think, to intuition. It's not that one person has it and they're special. I have taught tens of thousands of people how to open their intuition at this point across the globe, all different walks, all different paths, right? All different dogmas I've worked with. And it's the same across the board. There's no one path. It's literally like taste buds. It's a matter of saying you have them. Let's work through the things that have kind of convinced you. Let's deprogram some of the stuff that's convinced you that only special people can taste things, and that's where it opens up. The other thing that people struggle with is doing it the way that it looks like for somebody else. They hear an intuitive such as myself say, oh, well, I saw this, or I saw that, or I saw this. And I'm a huge fan of movies and television and all that. I can get myself into some really great series and binge them all day long. But at the end of the day, that's not what it looks like intuitively. So when you hear an intuitive say, I saw this or I saw that, people's perspective goes to what they've seen on television, that this medium is seeing it like it's the person, like another person standing in the room. And so they're looking for that. Meanwhile, they're missing what they're actually seeing intuitively, because the concept of what you see or how you hear has become so sensationalized that they're missing what's actually happening, if that makes sense. So I tell people to pay attention to the subtle, not the stark. Don't wait for the pop, listen to the subtle. And when you start to listen to the subtle, you'll start to hear some patterns in it. And that's when you know you're actually paying attention to your intuition. Because I see, but if I was to be direct about it, the way that I see something, like if I intuitively see an apple, it's like I'm seeing it on a table in a dark room. And I mostly know that I'm looking at an apple, but it's not this sparkly, perfect, Disney movie apple. It's a blend of a knowing. So your sixth sense uses your other five. The sixth sense is the knowing that sparks your nervous system to utilize the other five to describe, put it that way. And when people understand that and the subtleties of it, they can listen for the subtleties instead of expect the Hollywood version of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's perfect. That's the best explanation for it. And then there's like, it was a clean explanation because there's a lot of, you did avoid a lot of that muck, which is good. Like it shows your intelligence, it shows your sincerity, it shows your credibility, and I appreciate that. Because like you mentioned legit, like what in your mind is legitimate for being an intuitive in this realm of others like you, like us?
That's such a great question. My answer to that is this. Anyone that holds themselves in a space of not letting their intent or their opinion come in to the delivery of an intuitive message is legit. Anyone that intersects with or interjects their opinion or their intent is not legit.
Okay.
So, and that's kind of harsh. Not legit. There are people out there that are doing cold readings, and it is absolute crap. I'm sorry. It is. Anyone can do a cold reading. I can tell you that you have a Tom in your family, you have a Mary in your family, somebody living on a farm, somebody had a heart attack. I can tell you that all day long, but that's not legit. So people do use cold readings to take advantage of people. Please keep that in mind. Always get a referral to an intuitive. But people who, so legitimacy as far as scam versus not scam, you got to be very careful. But legitimacy when it comes to people who are using a higher percentage of intuition in your session, that type of legitimacy comes from being able to train your left brain to sit down, shut it up.
Well, I gotta stop you for a second. Did you just cold read me for a second when you said that, or did that just come out?
No. So cold read is fake read. So fake reading.
Okay.
So you connected to that, didn't you? You connected to.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's a cold reading technique. That's actually a scam technique. That was my example that I was using as a scam technique.
See, so it's a good freaking coincidence because my great grandparents are Tom and Mary, Thomas and Margaret. So,
yes. And
yeah.
so is. But here's the thing. So you can see how a scammer can instantly open a door to get you to go, oh, tell me more.
Are you familiar with Matt Fraser?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, I'm convinced he's a mentalist.
Mentalist. Yeah.
So he does some pretty good, I would say, scammy techniques, but good readings. I think he's got a bug in his ear, and he knows that somebody in the audience has something because somebody's done some research on them, and then he gets the whole row to stand up, and he starts, saying things, and he waits until the one person nods, and then he knows that that's the person that they.
That one.
Yeah.
And a legitimate intuitive is going to be able to take a room of people and point to one person in that room and say, your uncle, Tom, who is married to your Aunt Mary, sorry, I don't remember if it was grandparents or whatever for you, is showing you and him when you were 9 years old. There's this large ball. You're sitting outside in the yard and you're crying. And a legitimate intuitive is going to be able to bring you in to an experience that only you had.
Yeah.
So if they ask questions of you, too many questions, we'll say that, because it is fair to need to ask questions sometimes to make sure we're on the right path. But they're really, it does hit home. But that was an example of a fake reading. That was an example of what people can do. And it's frustrating, and it's
because it was a good guess, and naturally, I automatically had the thought, as logical as I am, as smart as I claim to be.
All right, I'm here. Hey, his internet went out and he has to reboot. So he told me to pop in and say hi.
Well, hello, Chris. do you relate to Tom, Mary, a farm, and a heart attack?
Heart attack, yes.
Okay.
Farm, yes.
Right?
Tom and Mary, no.
See, that's a good point. When people are using the not so legit techniques of doing a cold reading, meaning they're not connected at all. For some people, it's going to hit. For some people, it's not. So it hit for you, Ryan. It didn't hit for Chris.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. That's never happened before, and it's weird because like I'm connected to my hotspot right now. I had to, but see, I was feeling something. I was feeling something in the moment that I was doing it, and this is what I wanted to get into because I'm really connecting, and this us being energy beings, we affect a lot of our natural reality and don't realize it. I could have been projecting some energy that was just strong in that moment, and I just euchred my own connection because everything else is connected. I just did something. Or, the government's listening and they don't like it and they just want to shut me up.
So I'm going to go for the first one. I actually had when I first opened up, I had, and I ended up writing memoirs about the first 2 years because it was such a crazy period of time going from skeptic to non-skeptic. But when I first opened up, I think it was like a 48-hour period. It was like 2 days. No, it was like 3 days where 2 cars, I had moments of anger in a vehicle and my lights on my dashboard lit up and went back down. Now, mind you, just new to opening up, have no idea what's going on. Parked the car, went into the store, came out, the car was dead. So I had zapped the alternator and the starter. 3 days later, after having short-circuited a fan, clippers that I was cutting my kid's hair halfway through. That was fun. And then something else. I don't remember what the last one was, but 2 days later, 3 days later, I was driving my husband's truck because my car was in the shop now. So I was driving my husband's truck and again, had a moment of frustration and anger, watched his dashboard light up. And I remember thinking, no, this can't be. And I went to Barnes and Noble and I parked the car, went in, came out, parked the truck, went in, came out, the truck was gone. Both alternators and starter done. They all went to the same shop. And I remember the guy working at the shop talked real hush hush. And he was like, I know what happened to you. Yeah. And we were like, huh? And then the garage was like right behind our apartment complex. So it all worked out fine. But we were literally out both cars because all the alternators and all the starters on both of the cars were now gone. Yeah. And the guy at the shop was like, I know what happened to you. This happens to my brother. He gets mad and all the lights start burning out and the whole thing lights up. And then so I literally had a mechanic in like Portsmouth, New Hampshire explain to me that we're so energetically charged that if we have these like heightened moments, we can affect electronics around us. I was like, well, that's an expensive lesson for 2 vehicles.
I've witnessed that myself. Like sometimes my wife, she's very in tune. She doesn't identify as the psychic or medium, but she does Reiki. She does a lot. She is intuitive. But there are times I'll walk into the room and then things are, and she's stressed about something, and then I'll just do my normal consoling, and then all of a sudden everything starts flickering, and I'm just like, okay, hold, then I'll hold her, transfer the energy, but I'm not like I'm looking at the light to indicate, okay, all right, we're not going to go Chernobyl here, right? Yep. So let's calm down, and so I was leading into this, which is great because you kind of you're taking me there, and everything else that we're like. I have these ideas when I pick these thoughts and how to bring down, but I think you know where we're going with every conversation, which is great. So, would you say the poltergeist phenomenon is ghosts or us not realizing we have psychic abilities?
Oh, it's both.
Okay.
It's both. I love that. So I just want to put a pitch in here real quick about ghosts. And ghosts are people too. That's my pitch. That's it. Ghosts are people too. The thing that I have found over the years, like a team of me and a couple other of my practitioners went to like the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas recently to experience it, to, do work on it and things like this. And what I have found over the years is that we've dehumanized ghosts. We've dehumanized spirits into this concept of ghost, where ghost turns out to be a thing. And so we think of a ghost first off as a thing, and then secondly as a person. So that's my pitch. I just want to put in there because I want people to think in those terms a little bit more, get a little bit more human in their experience. But when it comes to poltergeist, yes, we can completely create things with our mind, and we can also move things with our mind. I have not gone down that road nor explored it, but it is absolutely possible when you understand the space in between the molecules. Once you understand that, you can grab the concept of it. It is a possibility. That's where I'll put it. I have not experienced it myself nor seen it in front of me, but yes, a person in this agreed upon reality can make that happen when they understand the space in between the molecules. With that said, I more so have seen spiritual activity where a ghost or a spirit stuck in the in-between, not transitioned, not completely done yet, kind of still hanging around, however you want to say that, the longer they stay in the in-between in our linear time structure, the more strength they gain. There are other exceptions where they come out hot and strong right out of the gate. Maybe they have deep understanding before they ever pass. But the second they let go of the physical body, they have much more access to the programming mind and the spiritual space to source to those spaces in between the molecules. I've literally had a refrigerator move a foot across the floor by a spirit behind me. And so I've witnessed the poltergeist. I've witnessed the strength. I've witnessed things move. I've the Sally House, when we just recently went to that, I went up the stairs. I got to two steps right before the top and had the push on the back of my knees. So I've felt the physical push. I've felt those types of things, and I've witnessed objects move. But it's really a matter of functioning in the space in between versus the actual solid. A spoon's not a spoon. There's truth in that.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of puts you in the room for the next one. Cause like when you had these experiences, were you alone or by yourself?
Sally House, I had 3 other women with me. They're all sage practitioners.
So how did you know that they may not, like, no one's energy in that room created that environment? Because we can move objects.
Yes.
So can ghosts, but how do we distinguish the difference between fear or concerns or that intended thought, and you believe that it's ghost that moves it because that's what we're told? How do you distinguish the difference?
I don't think you completely can, because spirits do have the ability to make themselves known and not make themselves known. So if they don't want to be seen, they can put effort into not being seen. The Sally house, I did not see any spirits around me at the time that my knees buckled. But I had 3 practitioners behind me, three women living behind me who could have felt, and it did turn out that one of them was aware that somebody previously had been pushed at the top of the stairs in this home. So she had that knowledge, right? So that knowledge coupled up with intensity or maybe some fear that she was having could have replayed that situation for the living person, myself, that she saw in front of her. That's very possible. But I didn't see a spirit that did that. In that one moment when I had the refrigerator slide across the floor, I was face to face with a spirit that was trying to disagree with me, we could say. And I was in a space of making sure that spirit got cleared and went home, and we're done with this type of haunting type game that you're playing. So that was more of an aggressive back and forth. And the refrigerator movement was very clearly done to try to rattle me. And it actually, it didn't, because it was like, a foot. Ooh. Okay, dude, let's keep going. But
did you guys use equipment to measure the electronic magnetic fields?
Not in either of those. No. Nope, not in either of those.
Have you ever been in a scenario where those equipment have been used?
Well, I did work with a ghost hunting team for a number of years. When I first opened up as a medium, I started working professionally. And then a couple years in, I had this overwhelming desire to be able to read spaces without any sort of limitations. And that's when I started looking for ghost teams. This was back in like 2010, I want to say. And back then, a lot of ghost hunting teams had wanted absolutely nothing to do with mediums. Because I don't know, a lot of them said mediums aren't real. And I was like, okay. So, I get it. They're a lot more open to them now. But the team that I did end up working with, I worked with them for a number of years, and it was great because the person in charge of the team was fantastic. He wouldn't tell me the location until the night of, like an hour before I was supposed to arrive. He would contact me and tell me the town. And then I would have to drive to the town and park and call again to find the location. He was great. He was like, here are the parameters I'm going to hold you in. And I was like, thank you. I've
done a lot of that too. I'll walk them over to places and test them and do all that other stuff.
Yeah. And so when he got evidence, I was on it. There was one where I was in a basement, and it was a bar in Dover, New Hampshire. I was in the basement and I saw a male spirit, young, maybe about 15 years old. I was talking to him, and I was going to cross him over, and I said, can you help with activity? Can you help with some evidence? And he said, yes. He disappeared. Now, mind you, every living person on the team all has synced audios on their arms. So we could later listen to all this. He said, the spirit said, yes, disappeared. And then upstairs, unbeknownst to me, we found out later when we matched everything up, the leader of the group, his camera sitting on the bar of the restaurant, not being touched, the flash started to charge and then go off, and then charge and then go off on its own. And he just let it happen and recorded it. And then that stopped, as far as the timing goes, that stopped. And then the spirit returned back to me and said, okay, I did it. Can I go home now? And I relayed that onto the audio. So those types of things were really moving. They were really neat to be able to experience.
See, what I appreciate in that explanation is that you were working with someone that is knowledgeable on collecting evidence.
Yes.
That is aware of how that evidence could be contaminated. I always rip apart ghost teams. Always, because they contaminate the evidence so easily and so blindly. You're the first person I've talked to. I'm going to say ever, that described, I don't even know who this person is, but described a proper way of dealing with that, because those devices could be triggered by you.
Yeah.
or any other person in that room that might have an inkling that they're psychic, but they don't realize it, or they're unwilling, they haven't, I don't know if it's politically correct, but coming out of the psychic closet, if you will, they don't know, right? Like, so, but it's still a problem. So my recommendation for investigations is to set your equipment up, leave the area, and then observe. Because if something happens, then we could suggest something. But when I've done that, nothing's happened. Everything in my experience, it's always happened when there's people involved, which is why I strongly believe that we're 90% the culprit of this. But we have this belief because that's what we're told. So, and that's why we have this challenge with science, making paranormal scientific.
Can I throw something out real quick too?
Yep.
It's the attention that's put on it. We are on linear time suspended in a space that is not linear time. So unless we put attention to something, it won't react. We have to think of or see or feel in order for something to continue on a linear timeline to interact with us as well. So eyes on it is a thing, but it's really connected to linear time.
I agree. All right, so we got 10 minutes left. What I want to do is I want to go through your website. I want you to tell everybody what they can find, promote yourself a little bit, and then we'll spend the last 5 minutes on something called Final Thoughts, and that's just you sending a message to everyone who's listening right now and everyone who's going to listen to it in the future. And so walk me through your site. This is your website. What do we got here?
Well, I would tell everyone to start with courses because there's a free course in here that is it's not small. It's a pretty big, that free intuition course. I would tell everyone to start there and to play around with what's in it. There's no attachment to this. I have given this course out. I can't even tell you to how many people, because just this is going to start opening up all of the concepts, the defocus, the possibilities, guide communication, all of that. That's where I would tell everyone to start, really. I have courses that range from animal communication to remote viewing to all of those types of things as well. But this is a great one. This is a great one to dive into and to give yourself the space to feel your intuition for what it actually is and not what maybe some of the world has told us.
Mm-hmm. I think I can get into remote viewing. I think that is when I mentioned I'm not sure where this psychic ability can be used that makes me feel comfortable as the being that I am. I think I've always felt comfortable with remote viewing to test it anyways, because I'm still working within this 3-dimensional world. I'm still here.
I encourage people to use remote viewing in ghost hunts. Have somebody off property connecting with somebody on property on the phone. This is how old I am, is that I'm using the old phone sign there. But remote viewing and ghost hunting is really powerful.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what else we got here? You got any books?
I do have a book. It's called Cracking Open. And the Sage Method course is the 7-week course. That's like, if you want to dive all the way in, that's where you go. That's where you dive all the way in. The Sage Method course is, I've been teaching that since 2008. So it's really big, but I think it's under About Sage at the top is the book. Yep. Cracking Open the book, about 3 down there. That is a memoir written in, it was published in 2011, but it's the first 2 years of what happened to me opening up. It's written in story format, so it's not boring. Because I love when something keeps you, but it's a firsthand experience of skeptic to non-skeptic, really, and it's everything kind of raw and in the open. But yeah, that's a really popular book.
Cool. It's conveniently named. I'm going to try and get the what I'm doing is I'm sharing the links to these in the chat for those who are listening. So I want to get in here and put that link in the comments there for everybody. Click on it. It's all there. It's free on Kindle Unlimited. Scroll those pages. Give us the royalties. Come on.
It's free on Kindle Unlimited. I love that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So anything else on the site you want to direct people to?
Well, we are on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel that put out videos once a week, and absolutely love it. All the videos are really focused on teaching you kind of deeper concepts about intuition. So if you're serious about opening up your intuition, these really support you. They get you thinking. And I try to give tools as often as I can as well that people can apply.
Sorry, this call came in. Didn't know I was on the podcast. I had to let them know. So they should be watching. They should know. What are they doing? All right. So this is good. So I put that. No, I did not put that in the comments. Let me put this in the comments here. Awesome. This is great. Before you do your final thoughts, I want to introduce you on our page to things that I've started that I could really use some help with. And I feel this connection, and I'm going on a whim here, and I'm putting you on the spot because we're live, so you don't have to comment. I'm sure you saw that commercial. I noticed that you were really into that commercial.
Yes.
When it played.
I love it.
It's been on hold. We've been looking for facilitators. So if anyone is listening, we need as many facilitators for it. But essentially what it is a private Zoom group where people come and they share their experiences and they get heard and they get listened, but it's not on the internet. It's not recorded. There's no investigator. I'm not in. I can't do this because I'll investigate. It'll give you the opportunity to promote yourself, give you the opportunity to promote Tessa, obviously. But then you have this, because you're good with workshops, and we have this thing, but it also gives our experiences a chance to have that one-on-one. It becomes a funnel, of course. But this is a resource that I really want to get going. So for those of you who are listening, we are looking for a facilitator. I want you to be interested in this, Isabeau. So take a look at that. And the other thing that is Experience Your Day. So Experience Your Day is December 9th. We are looking for people who can present and teach. And you just explained to me on your website that you are someone who does that. So there's an invitation as well that we want to have. And what we do for this, it's a free day for experiencers, a live stream. It's our third annual one this year. And we just run it all day and people tune in. We have a live chat. You promote your stuff. We get together. We teach. We learn. We grow. So there's an invitation to that as well. I believe you do have our email. So if we don't reach out to you first and you're already drinking the Kool-Aid, then give us an email real quick.
Absolutely.
All right. So final thoughts. What are you going to share with everyone listening and everyone watching this in the future?
Final thoughts. The space where you actually open up to intuition is that finely balanced, finely tuned space in between unlimited possibilities and healthy skepticism. That space where you actually see. And when people can hold themselves in that space, that's where a lot more doors will open up. It's perfectly fine to ask for proof, but also never land with what could possibly happen for you. That's where you're going to experience more and more.
I have a small child and she watches these shows, and I was just about to quote a show. So if anybody else knows what I'm about to say, don't make fun of me, but stay curious and keep exploring.
Stay curious. I love that. My sentence is, well, that's interesting. That's my sentence to remind myself to keep going and to not land and stop. And that's interesting. Tell me more. That's interesting. Tell me more.
Okay, awesome. All right, so it's time to go. Unless you guys want to stick around for the after chat and catch up on the latest test updates or pick my brain about ongoing investigations, I'm also going to entertain the comments. Thank you, Isabeau, so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be in touch. You got our email if you want to send us a message beforehand, and we'll be in touch. All right?
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. Okay. So for the audio-only listeners, your show ends here, but you can hop over to youtube.com, the Experiencer Support Association, to hear more. And if you want to stay connected with me, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. And thanks for tuning in. Keep your eyes in the sky. And as always, feed the world. Peace.
That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the ultra spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Feed the world.
All right. That was a pretty damn decent show, I might say. I haven't felt that good in a while in terms of having a guest on this show. Normally I have questions. I didn't ask a single question, just one, and we just kind of went off the cuff, resonated on a lot of stuff, and I really enjoyed that. Chris, I have to ask you, are you okay? Because I saw you pulling your hair out and rubbing your forehead so many times throughout this episode. You know, that break your mind? Are you okay? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm in a rabbit hole, and
Yeah,
I probably won't sleep tonight.
Yeah, I know. So welcome to the club, man.
Yeah.
All right. You got any comments?
Nope. I saw in the comments that there's a lot of comments, so
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that right now. All right. So let's say hello to everybody. Hello, Christy. Hello, Logan. Hello, Morning Star. Hello. Is that it? Worder. Yeah, Worder. Hello. No, Lisa this morning. Lisa, where are you? All right. So let's see what everybody said here. Christy says hi. I say hi. Logan, good morning, Logan. Wow, you're up early. That's nice. Morning Star. Hi. Morning Star. I would agree that it's better to learn occult sciences and read yourself versus having Chris, sorry, was that funny? Was that like you just like almost fell off your chair there? Okay, I would agree that it's better to learn occult sciences and read yourself versus having the scamdemic tidal wave of card flippers playing mind games. All right, lots to break down there. So that's where we got into the whole part. Like you can read cards, but like it depends on what you're saying. Like my grandmother read cards, but she read playing cards, like not tarot cards. And I mean, it's like getting a horoscope. It's what you take from it. But when you do something direct, like, oh, this card means you're going to die in 15 minutes. Like if it's like specific, I would question that. But these vague, it's like therapy though. Like, I mean, they give you this, open-ended kind of response because you want to feel better. The energy feels good. The energy feels bad. It depends on what you can trust. Right. Christy says watches is mine. I guess that's 10:30. So we were, I guess, getting into the effects of technology. I assume that's what that response was for. If you're still in the comments, you can explain. Morningstar says numerology life path numbers will answer the what's my purpose question. Relationships are doomed anyways if you're asking for third party advice. Jeez. Morningstar, you need to put some sugar in your coffee. All right, you got a quite negative guy today, or girl. I don't know who you are, but yeah, there are a lot of people that trust numbers. I think I like when we see those synchronicities, the 333 or the 111. Like they say, those are angel numbers or they're spiritual numbers. In that moment, you kind of stop what you're doing and you're acknowledging it, even if those numbers mean nothing. That positive mantra or that positive attention that you're giving in the day is beneficial. So, I mean, it comes down to the intent as well, right? I'm not talking to you one-on-one, so I don't, and plus this was earlier in the day, so my contacts might be out. Poltergeists are living psychics. Okay, that could be. My dad had the ability of telekinesis before he died. All right. Sorry to hear he passed. Upon returning, he has lost the ability. It's related to energy levels. His fingerprints were just vertical lines. So you have experiences with your father that's passed on, and what you're suggesting or saying is that these psychic abilities don't exist in the afterlife. That is a good thought, because and if you have that in experience, then obviously I'm not going to tell you that didn't happen, but I've never really considered that. Do we have superpowers when we pass on? What do we have? We don't know. And that kind of made me think. So thank you for sharing that. Christy says, when I got mad, I threw a camera at my brother and didn't touch it. Didn't touch your camera or didn't touch your brother? But so maybe. Oh, you're saying you move the object with your mind. Interesting. Thanks for sharing. So Morningstar, again, speaking from experience, and your opinion is that dead don't have the energy to move stuff. Maybe they do. Maybe some don't. We gotta die and do our experiments on the other side, and then figure out how to come back to life, and then tell us. That's a good, it's hard to prove that stuff, but I hear you. I'm with you on that thought. Emotions are energy. I agree. We change the way we act by the way we feel. You want to stop something from happening, you feel a certain way, and it's not the action that you want to change. It's the feeling. People will do things because they feel a certain way, positive and negative. Moving an object without touch requires feeling the object without physical touch, like the thought of lemon juice will make you taste it. Yeah, so lemon juice, if you've tasted it before, you can recall those memories. But if you've never had lemon juice before, you can't. Could you taste it if you don't know what it tastes like? And that's not someone describing what it is to you. I know, so that might be, I might challenge that a little bit in terms of that. For something you don't know. So if you've never moved an object before, I wouldn't even know where to start. So it looks like Isabel has a course on how we can learn how to do that. I'm normally exposing fake psychics. Well, good for you. Thank you for your service. I do as well. And greetings from Germany. Greetings from Canada. Hello. And what did Logan say? Okay there, Mr. Freeze. Get a meeting this morning. Got to be up. Oh, got a meeting this morning. Got to be up. There's a meeting this morning? Logan? Chris's meeting? Work? Oh, you're working on your own, and I have no idea what the fuck's going on. Good for you. Or maybe I forgot, and we don't want to talk about it while we're live. We'll talk about it later. Good job. All right. So, what do we got here for new comments? Oh, right, your team meetings. It's Thursday. All right. Okay, I forgot. All right. Okay, so we've made it to the end of the comments. If you got questions, ask. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I've been posting since the last podcast, I suppose. So yeah, obviously Halloween happened. We set up the decorations. My little girl called me Batman, and I thought that was cool. And then I realized that it meant Battery Man because I had to set up all the batteries. So that's like a little dad joke, but anyways. I posted this one. I thought this was good for those who didn't know what this meant. This is roses are red, the earth is flat, cash me outside. How about that? I thought that was a pretty good riddle or a good meme for Friday the 13th. We did dabble on the flat earth theory. I don't know, Chris, if you notice how I was touching on that. Just a little bit, just a smidgen, eh? I got you in here, but I didn't say it. But
No,
I brought her there with science.
you tried.
No, we were there. We just didn't say the word. Right? Yeah. Go back and watch the replay. This I thought was interesting. So this is an archaeological find of Gilgamesh. So they allegedly found the tomb. And this guy is like 16 feet tall. You see him wrestling a lion, all these other stuff too. So it's very interesting that they finally found what appears to be his tomb. He's a demigod, a mix between, I guess, Anunnaki and the Sumerian people at the time. There's a lot of parables with that. There's a connection to Enkidu, which is Bigfoot. Things like that. Well, I was going to say but there's a connection to Bigfoot. Quite an interesting character back into Sumerian and Anunnaki times. This further supports the possibility of ancient astronaut theory and all that other stuff. So I thought this was a good archaeological find. So you can find that and whatnot. Logan, what'd you say? Oh, I noticed and facepalmed. Yeah, well. Hey, you told me you converted. You're both converted. You can't talk shit. You guys know once you go flat, you don't go back. Space is not only up, but out. Yes. I posted this one too. It said everyone wants a spiritual woman until she's pissed off. Now she's a witch and you're scared. And you know what? There's a lot of people that agree with that. There's 174 people who agree with that. And 38 people who shared it. Like this was quite this is how I do experiments on thoughts. Is it true? Is it not? And I agree with that. When my wife is upset, and even if she's not mad at me, it's just like, do you really want to go that far? But I understand. Let me see here. So here, obviously, we have some cosmic merchandise on our store. For those who don't realize, we do actually have a shop and a store. I'm going to share that link in the comments here for you guys. Logan says, let's not mention names, but agreed. All right. Christy says, oh my God, for what? Another thing too, I have published my second report, the 2021 Canadian UFO report. I did share some pictures of what that looks like inside for those who are curious. And let me share that with y'all. So, inside here real quick, here's the data reports of the information I collected over the year. And then, of course, all the trends, my explanation on what that means. Here's some of the declassified documents that I received. And then a breakdown comparison. All that information is there inside this report. And then in the back end, I investigate and I show my work and I show how I come to my conclusions, because it's important for you guys to not, to understand how I came to that thought and either accept that, or maybe you're smarter than me, which is a high possibility because I'm just an investigator. I'm not an expert in any of these fields, but you might be able to teach me something or educate me and be a part of the team, because I'm certainly looking for experts. But I'm on my own on here, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on based on what I know and what I understand and whatnot too. So that's there if anybody is interested. You can purchase. I'm gonna do a shameless plug here and post my book in the comments there. There you go. I'm hoping to get 2023 out before Christmas, 2022. Then I shared this morning. I follow this AI generation page that does some random stuff, and I just thought, this was interesting. This is what they view Canada looks like. So I thought, so the AI bot drew an image of what Canada looks like, and I thought this was pretty badass. So, and of course we had our lovely guest, and we're there. You can also get some of this merch and stuff on my page if you are interested. All right, and those of you who don't know who I am, and there's a link to my crap right there. All right, Chris, what do we got? Anything else? Nothing. All right, any other comments? That's the music. Boot up. All right, everybody. And we'll see you soon. Good luck at your meeting. I'll talk to you soon, Chris. And Chris says RCP the move instead of a yeah. How about that? All right. See you.
If you want to really, really find out about Ryan, ask him about all his work and UFOs in Ontario.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada.
I have used his research extensively. He's much more than a one-dimensional character. He's an authority on UFOs and investigating them, Meg.
Wow!
Really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. For starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them.
He would come out with an annual report on not only the number of sightings, but how many were unexplained, unknown, or just, nothing could be said. What caused it?
If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.